Ohio State and Tennessee take on one another in Columbus, Ohio. Joe, we talked about this earlier. It was a big deal to me. The only real thing that I liked about the playoff being expanded, especially there being home games, was that we get non-traditional powers facing each other in home, and it won't be home to home, but in road games, true road games, or true home games. And Ohio State and Tennessee is that. And to be real with you, I think that this game is going to be fan-freaking-tastic. When I look at both of these teams, I think that they're even in a lot of different ways. And I'm interested to hear what you have to say on this, because I think that this could be a field goal to maybe even closer than a touchdown game here on whichever team wins it and decides it. Your thoughts?
You nailed it exactly with your lead in there. That, like, my initial thought on this was, I'm just excited about the matchup. Like, forget us talking X's and O's and stats and who's going to win this game for a quick second. This is the most compelling matchup. And if the rest of the playoff field was put together more effectively, we'd have more games like this. This is going to be so freaking fun to watch. And I couldn't be more excited that this is the result of the 12-team playoff, that we get a road environment. It's not just in some AstroTurfed dome in some city in the South or out west in the Rose Bowl. We're actually going to get to see possibly some snow. Who knows? Going back to who's going to win this football game, both of these teams have tremendous defenses, great defensive lines. They both have talented running backs. They both have inconsistent passing attacks that have not shown up in some of their worst performances. And both have inconsistent offensive lines that have been dealing with injuries, Ohio State's being on a grander scale because Josh Simmons and Seth McLaughlin are done for the season. My current lean as it sits, knowing that both these teams are pretty even statistically defensively, and we'll extrapolate on that in a second, I lean on Ohio State because Ohio State's secondary has been so freaking good. And even in games like, Indiana, Ohio State's offense was great, but they didn't need to take over. It was Ohio State's defensive performance. In the Michigan game, their defense still played lights out, and they couldn't get it done. I think that secondary is going to cause a lot of fits for Nico. I think that Nico, this is a big step up moment. How are you going to play going up against one of the best secondaries in the country when they're playing at their best? They have gotten so much better since that Oregon game. And we have talked about this, Blake. Tennessee's receivers have not played up to expectation, and it does not feel like they have somebody who's truly going to threaten this Ohio State secondary. So I'm leaning, and it's a bit of an aggressive, heavy lean into Ohio State, because I think that secondary matchup against these Tennessee receivers is going to play out at a pretty grand scale.
I got to go the opposite route, okay?
Really?
Not in reference to who I think's winning. I think Ohio State's got a serious problem.
Don't disagree.
Very serious problem. That problem being is they are one of the worst teams in the Big Ten at converting offensively on third down. Yeah. Now, nationally, they're not that bad, but in the Big Ten, they are. Joe, in these big games that they've had that they've lost, critical situations on third down, they can't convert. Tennessee is 8th in the country in third down defense. I mean, 4th. Yeah, no. 5th in the country in third down defense. Okay. Ohio State is 47th in conversions. And every time I feel like I see Tennessee in a big spot defensively, especially on third down, they deliver. Every single time, whether it be Tennessee, whether it be against Georgia, whether it be against Alabama, they always find ways to get off the field on third downs. And that has been a struggle for Ohio State since they have not been able to find a consistent running game after Nebraska. And then let's talk about that running game, Joe. Tennessee has been damn good in their front seven. And I don't really know if Michigan, to me, doesn't remind me of what could happen here. Like, Joe, we're talking about a Tennessee team that is better offensively than Michigan is. And I've seen multiple times. I've seen multiple times where Ohio State has gone up against a physical team and it's given them issues. Tennessee is the Coca-Cola version of that. They want to line up and bust you up. That's all they want to do. Line up and let's bust you up. It's like a Rocky in the third movie. He tells Clubber Lang, I'm going to bust you up. And Rocky says, go for it. All right? Like, that's how I envision this one going. But there's two things that I can't get out of my mind here, Joe, at the current moment. Ohio State has been the butt of every joke for the last couple of weeks since they've lost to Michigan. For the last 2 weeks, they have been the butt of jokes. Oh, Ryan Day jokes. You know, like the Family Guy memes and videos that have been out there. I saw one about rice cakes, and it's Ryan Day choking, right? Like, everybody has been talking about Ohio State being upset by Michigan. How much more motivated does that make a team going into the season that was supposed to be a perennial number 1 overall team? Can they respond at home? That is going to be the ultimate question. I think they are going to respond. I do think Ryan Day is going to get them up for this, and why wouldn't he? It's a playoff game at home. Your season is really now on the line here. And then the second thing I can't get out of my head too, Joe, is that we talked a lot about Tennessee this year. And one thing that we've seen from them every single game, one half, they look like a national title contender. And then the second half, they'll go boo-boo. I'm like, baby, you can't score. Or the opposite would happen. They can't score in the first half versus Arkansas. They can't score in the first half versus Alabama. And those are not the defenses that you're going to see on the road in Ohio State. It's just not. So as much as I think that Ohio State does have a problem in a lot of areas, so does Tennessee.
Right.
And it's going to be interesting to see who's able to overcome those issues that's going to get them to the ultimate thing that everybody wants, and that is a win.
I think we're really on the same page here with this preview, because
I don't like that at all. That means that we're wrong. I don't like it at all.
Well, but we're not picking out, right, like this team wins, that team wins. The title is going to suggest that, because that's what I do when I build the titles and the thumbnails. But we're understanding that this is a very evenly matched game that is going to likely be close. And I brought up my concerns for Tennessee and why their offense could sputter and things could not work because they just can't hit things over the top. And Dylan Sampson maybe has a couple of big plays, but they bat down the hatches and they're able to slow down that run game. You brought up the other part of this. Tennessee's defensive line is so freaking deep. This is arguably the deepest defensive line. Actually, I'm not even going to say arguably. This is the deepest defensive line that Ohio State has seen all season. Omar Norman-Lott is so freaking good in the interior. I loved his tape breaking him down as a prospect. I think he's going to be a highly drafted kid in the top 50 picks. And James Pierce Jr., we know he is a game wrecker going up against likely Donovan Jackson, who is playing out of position, who is supposed to be playing inside at guard. So to have this makeshift offensive line going up against a unit that is constantly rotating guys in, constantly bringing new players in their front seven, that's where the fear comes in for me for Ohio State. If Ohio State lays an egg offensively, it's going to be because Tennessee just gets home and keeps getting home and just keeps generating pressures on Will Howard. My biggest, and I don't care that Ohio State fans keep trying to, give me shit for talking about Will Howard. I have said this over and over again with Will Howard. He is a good quarterback. He's actually a tremendous quarterback when everything is working and everything is set up and flowing in front of him. 1,000% when Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka and the run game is cooking and it's just flowing. He's the perfect guy for that. But when those guys aren't getting open and you're seeing pressure in your face, Will Howard's just not the type of player to really truly ascend through the madness. Nico's not there yet, but I know that it's deep down within him that he can ascend. I'm not saying that he's going to have some crazy performance, but is there a world where Nico suddenly the switch is flipped and he's great at escaping pressure and he gets away from JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer? He can't get away from him. That's what I'm saying. If I were to pick a quarterback who's going to handle getting pressured more, I'd pick Nico more than I would pick Will Howard.
Well, the only thing that I'd push back on that, I was with you until the very last part about Nico. Experience is going to win. It will win out majority of the time. Fair. Okay. And so I could see Nico going into Columbus and struggling. and Walker Howard being better than him because he is more experienced than him. There's one thing I massively agree with you on. I don't think Will Howard's going to be able to, unless they change something, unless they get some guys back from injury. I don't know if Walker Howard is going to be able to not be that guy for them to win, because I don't know if Ohio State can run the ball. So this is not the team to try to find your run game. It isn't. And if they do, good on them. But Tennessee has shown week over week that they are going to bust. They will put, and we talked about this again ad nauseum, Joe, they'll put 7-8 guys in the box and play man-to-man coverage with no safety over the top and say, you are not running on us. They've done it all year. It's not like we haven't seen it. The only thing I counteract with that to you, though, man, it's pretty simple. Tennessee is a half-by-half team, though. They will come out they will come out in a half and they'll dominate, and then they'll in the second half they'll wee down their leg. My son Ben says wee. By the way, he says, "Daddy, I got a wee." It's so funny. Anyway, sorry, but they will wee down their leg, and I'm just saying, I can't get that out of my head. I have not seen against a decent opponent Tennessee put a 4-quarter game together, not once. And if they can't do that on the road against Columbus, they're going to get beat. If there's going to be a reason, I haven't picked the game yet, but if there was a reason I go with Ohio State, for me, it's because I just can't get out of my head that Tennessee has not shown me that they can be consistent week in and week out.
Yeah, I agree. I like those points that you added in there. My final, before we move on to this next game, my final piece of context I just want to throw in there. You talked about the run defense. They are 4th in EPA per rush, so they're not allowing a lot of efficiency or a lot of big plays, and they're 3rd in havoc rate, which is one of our favorite stats on the show. So they're disruptive as hell against the pass and against the run, and they're not allowing much production against opposing rushing attacks. I mean, the best games that they've played have been against teams that run the ball really well, and they've completely removed opposing teams' run games. So it's very important to
so they got to prove. I'm serious. Ohio State fans, last thing for me. Let's be real here for just a minute. What were the games that you struggled in the most? Because Oregon, I guess maybe, but I don't you struggle.
I wouldn't count that as a struggle. I wouldn't count Oregon as a struggle.
Right. I don't. That's what I was about to say. I don't even know if I count that as a struggle. Nebraska and Michigan.
And Penn State wasn't clean either. I'd throw that in there too.
Right. No. Thank you for adding that. Oh, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. You know who they are?
Who?
They might be a cleaner version, Tennessee, of Penn State.
Oh, that's a good point.
That can actually have multiple dudes that can get home. Damn. Look what you did. I'm like Dr. House. You gave me an epiphany. You said something and gave me an epiphany. And I'm not talking about the girl from the breakfast at Denny's. Anyway.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.